Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. When we get together with him, I love what he does in terms of blending science with life in general, applying science to it. Kind of fascinating when you boil it right down. And this is somebody who has applied experimental orientation to his own life patterns for many years, producing many eureka moments and social phenomena. And he's been deep into the science world, experimenting, authoring. He's got a great memoir, by the way. And we're going to dig in with him once again. Our professional of the year, Grant Venerable, is on the program. Hey, Grant, how you doing?
I'm fine, remarkably fine today.
You've got a lot going on. I want to share with everybody that you just moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And from the times that we've spoken, and I'm sure we're going to dig deeper into it today, there's a lot of epiphanies with that move, a lot of things that have come up, and even with an eye on science with that, right?
Yes. I like to scan my internet news feeds before I start podcasting. And one of the most fascinating paradoxes I've heard is about the new emphasis on lethality in the Department of Defense to find new ways of killing people. And I have come to live in a place that is a Department of Defense reservation. And it's out here on the desert, and that's all I'll say about that. But I do want to say that the whole emphasis of this reservation where I'm living in a complex that's being operated by the United States Department of Defense. But instead of lethality, the emphasis is on community, and that people here live in community with one another. There are people of many different national origins and indigenous origins, and people that have moved out of the cities around Los Angeles and San Diego and have a new harmony here in the desert, which is one of the most beautiful settings in the world. So with that, I start. And the complex that I live in is, as I said, the emphasis is about community, building greater community. And it's not just military veterans and active people. It's civilian people. For example, my brother is a veteran of the Navy, and he hasn't been active in many years. But that's one of the reasons that they wanted us to live here in this community. It's a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment, but it's amazing how small a space it is, but how much you can get in it in an organized way. But as I said at the start, I'm just head over heels in shipping boxes, trying to find the essential things I need to carry on everyday life. I guess that's a way, it's a metaphor actually, of our everyday existence. We're trying to find better ways to carry on with our lives. But as I said, paradoxically, the new emphasis in the world, well, in the United States, is building community. And it may seem an irony that the Department of Defense would be and is one of the leading agents for peace in the United States and in the world. And of course, there are forces within the department looking for new and better ways to kill people in foreign encounters. And how different this is than the natural flow toward peace and what's happening in building community. And that all seems so paradoxical, but it's not on the 6 o'clock evening news. Let me put it like that. But where it is where people really live in their hearts, their minds, their souls, and work together. So here I've come from Georgia in the Deep South, and I've arrived in Southern California in the far out West. But people are basically the same, and I think that's what I'm being reawakened to in coming home to California, near my birthplace in Los Angeles. And how California, in its wonderful educational system, in elementary school through junior high, high school, and one of the great public institutions of the country, named UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, which prepared me for the University of Chicago to do my studies in chemistry and chemical physics, which has had a great impact on my life. And of course, I was taught by some of the greatest professors in the physical sciences, and one of the paradoxes there was that many of these men and a few women developed the atomic bomb in the Manhattan Project in the early 40s. So I was in the second generation of scientists to come along who were the students of these professors who actually entered new fields dedicated to peace, the peaceful uses of the atom. So that's been my life ever since entering a career. I always started my chemistry lectures seated in my office for a few minutes thinking of a engaging way to start the subject of the lecture, whether it would be valence theory, bonding theory, or chemical reaction theory. And that's what I do before I start a podcast, is to check what's going on in the world and what's going on with my own thinking. So I just jotted down some key points which I would like to inject here. And the greatest point is the family, because my family of my sister, brother, and me are in our latest genesis of being, in a way that there's 4 generations of family on my cousins' families, and many are still here in Southern California. And we're like not the oldest elders of the cousins, we're kind of the middle elders. The oldest elders are in their middle to late 90s and still trucking, as we used to say in the 60s. So it makes a vital community with the young kids who are like only infants or 5 years of age. And one of them is close to where we're now living here in the desert, who's 5 years of age. And they are a collection of different heritages and human groups. So I think what I'm thinking about right now is the Smithsonian Institution, because there's some rip-roaring paradoxes there. We're being informed that for example, African American History Month or Week, it's rather being dismantled so that it doesn't cause divisiveness. Now, I don't know what kind of thinking the government is bringing that about, because now that I'm in this new place in the desert, I don't see any divisiveness, and nor do people here. The other part of it is that the paradox is that St. Patrick's Day is an old tradition in the United States, and yet there are some people in the government that thinks, well, maybe we shouldn't be celebrating St. Patrick's Day because it brings about old divisiveness between the what's been going on in England, and then it stopped the battles between the Protestants and the Catholics, but the world is in a natural drift toward peace and harmony, and it's not really being publicized or recognized. So my last thought to add to that is that in driving in on the evening of a little over a week ago, I'm at 2,000 feet elevation and was able to look at the whole universe, as it were. And I haven't seen that in years. It's really a privilege to see 100 million stars up there peering down at us, and clumps and clusters of stars. And the Milky Way is on such display here in the high desert. How's that for a start, Stephen?
That's a wonderful start to your new journey back on the West Coast. And you said something before, and I want to get further clarification on your feeling on this. You lived on the East Coast for quite some time, and now you're back on the West Coast. And you mentioned about the people. Do you detect that people are now very different on the West Coast, or is it kind of the same?
They're the same except different.
Okay.
And that's the whole lesson of chemistry. All atoms of elements are the same except they're different. And they're organized around that beauty of the difference with their sameness. And people are still working toward that, which is really governed by the atoms inside of us. So we really can't avoid it. But I came to a love of the people in the Deep South, even people who purported not to like one another for this reason and that reason, and some reasons very historic in the Deep South. But the same things are present in the Far West, but they're handled in a different way. And I started feeling a sense of comfort being back among my Western people, but bringing with me the memories of my Southern people who embraced me so greatly and with such loving community. And I was given a number of going away celebrations, and the church community to which I belonged prepared a memory book of their memories of me and my memories of them, chock full of photographs of myself with the different families in the church. I must have had affiliations with many, many church groups on the way to where I am now, but some people find that paradoxical, even, that how a scientist is so involved with religion as well as with science. But that is part of the important story, that science and spirituality or intellectuality are the same dynamic, but they're experienced in different ways, which are close to culture and mythology, which is so important to the development of human civilization. And that's a whole different topic, but it was one I taught in chemistry classes. So that's where we are right now. Many, many paradoxes and unities, and the divisiveness is really for those who want to be conscious of divisiveness. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. The unity is what really is present, and the family is reconstituting itself in so many ways. I think California has been very active in that. There's so many different ways of people being in family with one another. And yes, it's true, I think. Even the more fundamental believers in religion who say that the family is the core of the society. And California is saying, and yes, and there's so many ways to be family. And so my emphasis has always been on the extended family, where it is the bulwark support of what has become the nuclear family, which in many ways is an illusion. I don't know if we've touched on that before, but it means somebody decided sometime 200 years ago when the Industrial Revolution began that the ideal family is two parents living together with 2.5 children. That wasn't true before 1800 or 1700. But then this rush to industry in the cities where people made more money, the farming family, the extended family broke down. And one of the effects of that is the fact that we have more breakdown of our products, manufactured products that didn't really start big time until the 1990s. And then one day someone discovered that our major aircraft manufacturers were not always making perfect airplanes. What's going on? So there have been congressional investigations. But I've been talking about what's been going on since the 1980s, when my emphasis was the role of art, performing arts, visual arts, humanities, in a technologically evolving society. But you need the arts because they sustain community and they sustain family. And if you can't do that, you can't design planes properly. That's a simple fact. And that hasn't occurred to the Congress yet. Some people are getting it. So if your family breaks down, you're not going to design televisions or washing machines that last very long, because they're all based upon components with motherboards that give out in 5 years. One of my paradoxes was leaving my 2 prized Kenmore washer and dryer in Georgia because I didn't want to transport them. I could get another one out in California, but they never broke down because they weren't made from motherboards.
Well, you remember that commercial way back in the day, Maytag, right? And it was
Maytag.
The Maytag repairman. He was lonely. He had nothing to do because the things never broke down.
They didn't break down.
Right?
I bought these 2 machines 26 years ago, and they never broke down except once. I had to call the repairman, and that was only a $35 repair.
Now, I want to, at this point, and I'm glad we opened this door. Why, and your thoughts in general, most of what we use nowadays is disposable. You have a TV. It's 4 years old, stops working.
Yeah.
Do you get somebody to repair it? Usually not, unless it's a very expensive TV. A lot of times you just move on, get another one. Same thing with a computer monitor. You can buy them used if you want for $20. What has happened with our society where everything is turned into disposable? What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, they began in the 1980s when I was active as a system scientist in the computer industry in Silicon Valley, California. And the mission of the companies, particularly Motorola, which is the company that I worked for, the mission was to serve the customer, was customer service. But that it morphed to something different that we didn't recognize in the 90s, or the 80s, the 90s. It became how much more can you pay the shareholders? How much more can you pay the senior officers of the company? And the customer just became a second thought. And I kind of mumbled every time I try to get through on the telephone to whatever company I'm calling, whether it's my bank or my gas and power company. Mm-hmm. And there's just very little outreach to take care of the customer's needs. Now, I can't solve that problem today, but I'm writing about it.
our whole society into the disposable situation. Why do you think it went that way?
I think because of the Industrial Revolution.
Really?
And the migration of people into the cities. And that started very early, late 1700s, England, then in America. And it seems very simple, but it's very plausible. I think that's what happened. Because when you go to the cities, Grandma and Grandpa don't move to the cities. They stayed out on the farm until big farming manufacturers, the big corporate farm took over, and then the family farm was gone. The family values were gone. The family value ultimately is unity, thinking of complementation of our labors, our activities, not competition, cooperation. Cooperation. That's what a family does. And I look back with some, what do I call it? I miss it. How the extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles, were always there when you needed them, when you needed something that you couldn't provide in your own nuclear family. And so I've been, looking, how do you restore that? But my family's close to doing that because the reason we really came to this place was Caltech, which is where my father went to college and had to learn how to survive as a minority group member and get through, finish, forge strong friendships, family ties with professors and classmates. Now, interestingly, as soon as we get back here, we're informed that Caltech is having a formal dinner at the residence hall named after our father, Grant D. Venerable House. And so it's just ironic that we've arrived back in California just before they have this dinner. So we're going there Friday night.
Oh, wow.
Just to be part of the creating family in this house, this residence hall, that the students feel more part of a university campus. And ironically, again, some of the initiatives that colleges have formed that have a name called DEI, that whatever governmental entities are trying to banish DEI don't know what they're doing because they don't ever define DEI except as something to drive us apart. Caltech is moving in a direction of unity and not divisiveness. So we're part of that effort, and I'm honored to be that because it brings back those happy memories from childhood when there was so much unity in the Los Angeles schools. And I'm not saying it was perfect. Perfection still has yet to come, but it was moving in that direction and still is again.
We're just about out of time. Just fascinating insight that you provide, Grant, on things that have been happening for decades in terms of the direction of the economy and so much. Congratulations on your move. I know it's been a long time coming, a lot of work involved there, and I appreciate you being here today. By the way, I want to remind everybody, Footprints in the Chaotic Unknown, your memoir, which has a lot of interesting insight, and if you do a search, Grant Venerable on Amazon, it will come up. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Stephen.
We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man-to-man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.